For Nick Jones, it was just another ordinary day. Every morning at 6 a.m., he would get up and go for a run around Melbourne. He would go the same road and, halfway through, order the same coffee from the same cafe. Nick had a wife and 2 children, and he lived in a lovely house in St. Kilda. He owned and worked at a neighborhood Italian restaurant. Nick had no idea his violent past would soon come back to bite him. He had served in the army and was a member of the ASF, Australian Special Forces, which was a group of specially trained men with extensive experience in a variety of fields. They specialized in a variety of fields, including bomb disposal, building raids, and gun combat, to name a few. They specialized in a variety of fields, including bomb disposal, building raids, and gun combat, to name a few. But Nick was out for a routine run when a parked car on the side of the road exploded right in front of him. He was hurled into a nearby newsstand. He stood up, stunned. He had no idea what had just happened. Nearby pedestrians rushed to his aid and inquired about his condition. "I'm fine," he simply replied. He was used to this sort of thing, but he couldn't figure out why a car had exploded in the Melbourne city centre at 6:30 a.m. He approached what was left of the car. He searched for anything that stood out, anything that would prove whether it was intentional or accidental, and he had a bad feeling it was intentional. He looked under the car for anything suspicious because there was only the main body of the car left. He discovered 2 cylinders directly beneath the gas tank. Suddenly, the police swarmed the crime scene. He quickly grabbed the 2 cylinders and placed them carefully under a nearby bin. 2 police officers approached him and confronted him. "Are you the one who was hurt in the explosion? Isn't it the blood that gives it away? Being a smartass isn't going to help any longer. Would you mind accompanying us back to the train station? We have a few questions for you." "Well, I do have a business. It will only take a half hour, sir." "It's Nick, and well, if I may." "You have to." He was driven to a nearby police station and led into an interrogation room. "Am I being charged with murder?" Nick asked. The officer simply stated, "Of course not." "So, what brings me here?" "Because all of the other, friendlier rooms are booked. So the real criminals get the nice rooms, while the innocent victims are stuck here?" "No, sir, that is not how it works." "Are you sure?" "Sir, yes." "Stop calling me a sir. I've got a name." "Okay, Nick, we have some questions for you. Simply respond with a yes or no, unless a different response is requested." "That's fine with me." Taking an hour of questioning, Nick was set free. He ended up taking the first taxi he saw and came back to the crime scene. He turned to the bin where he had placed the 2 cylinders as soon as he arrived. "Thank you, God. They're still here." He took them and came home immediately. He had a long night ahead of him. When he got home, he went straight to his basement, where he put all of his old work items, such as old files and papers, as well as the occasional service medal. He noticed something when he finally started working on the cylinders. Something was engraved on them. He took out a magnifying glass to get a better look. "Next time, you die," was engraved on what had nearly killed him. He shot down immediately the magnifying glass. It hit on the ground and smashed. His wife had heard and came in to find out what had happened. He lied to her, telling her the cylinders were from the restaurant's oven and that he would clean up the glass. He had persuaded her to return upstairs. He knew right away who had planted the bomb under the car and who was out to kill him. The following day was unlike any other. He did not go on his usual run. He did not get his usual cup of coffee from the same cafe. He was now going to try to track down the man who had attempted to murder him, hopefully before the man found him. Nick was fortunate in that he knew exactly where to look. He knew exactly where he lived. Nick arrived at the house in quick time. It was a large mansion in Melbourne's north side. It was surrounded by a large wall with security cameras in every corner. He quickly realized that he wouldn't be able to simply jump over the wall to gain access. Nick came home, frustrated, to find a broken window. A brick had been thrown through the window. Fortunately, his wife and children were away for the day. A note was written on the brick. "Don't come looking for me, as I will have already found you," the note said. Nick was so upset by this that he didn't sleep that night. He stayed awake all night thinking of a way to get inside that house. The next day, he arrived at the house dressed as a chef from his restaurant and carrying a large pizza. He simply strolled through the front door and knocked. "Yes?" asked the guard who answered the door. "Hello, I'm here to bring you the pizza you ordered." "No one ordered pizza here." "Are you sure?" I am. "Oh, okay, sorry for wasting your time." As Nick walked away, just as the guard closed the door, he turned and pushed the door into him, grabbed him, and head-butted him. The guard collapsed to the ground. He was knocked unconscious. Nick now had access to the house. He searched every room for anything that could connect the house's owner to the assassination attempts. Fortunately, no one else was home at the time. He eventually came across a locked room. He assumed there would be something valuable to be hidden inside. As soon as he walked in, he noticed bomb-making materials. He took one step and tripped on a wire running along the floor, causing an explosion that destroyed everything in the room. It somehow did not kill him. When he turned to leave the room, he noticed "Lucky You," that one was close carved into the door. The message was correct, however, it was too close this time. Nick immediately left the house. He got back into his car and noticed a piece of paper on the front windscreen. He stepped out of the car, grabbing the note. "Hello, Nick, I know you know who this is," the note said. "I also know you understand why I'm doing this. What you did to my father was unforgivable. You will be punished. I've loaded an arsenal into your trunk. I hope that's all you need. The hunt will begin tomorrow at 12 p.m. 132 Swanston Street is the location. Then ascend to the top floor. Then go to room 913. A hotel key card was sticky taped to the note. Nick had raided a known terrorist hideout in 1992. The mission was to capture the leader while he was unharmed. Unfortunately, he attempted to flee. Nick had no choice but to take the shot. He did, and it knocked the target out, as headshots do. When he looked closer, he realized he had not shot the target. Instead, he had killed an innocent electrician who happened to be working on the building they had raided at the time. Paul McManus' father was that innocent electrician. Paul was only a child when Nick murdered his father. When Paul found that his father had been murdered, he wrote to the American government, and the letter somehow reached Nick. It basically said that he would kill him someday for what he had done to his father. Nick was well aware that he wasn't making a joke. Nick opened his trunk and discovered a high-powered .50 cal sniper rifle, complete with ammo. There were also a few smaller weapons. Nick was clever, and instead of going to the room at 12, he went across the street and surveyed the situation. Unexpectedly, a man entered the room. Nick checked the scope of the sniper Paul had given him. The man was not Paul. He was a man wearing a bulletproof vest who seemed to be looking for Nick. Nick was shocked when he heard a loud bang and the window directly in front of him smashed. Someone was shooting at him from the hotel's roof. He jumped out of the way of the shooter in the window. Nick had to get out of there. Except that now a shooter from across the street was firing a machine gun into the room he was in. To get to the door, he had to crawl through the room. He eventually made it to the door, opened it, and was punched in the face. Paul was the one. "I've changed my mind. I'm going to kill you right now." Nick attempted to tackle him to the ground, but he was still shocked from the punch. All he had to do was knock the gun from his reach. That was all he needed. He then fastened from the room. He hadn't gone far when Paul started firing down the corridor. Nick eventually got to the elevator and pressed the G button. He made a quick phone call while in the elevator. Paul had taken the stairs. Nick was the first to arrive. Paul made it to the ground floor a few seconds later. Nick pointed his gun at Paul, and Paul did the same. Suddenly, a swarm of police officers charged through the hotel lobby, all aimed directly at Paul. "It's the end of the road, Paul," Nick said. Paul grunted, dropped his gun, knelt, and placed his hands on the back of his head. 3 officers rushed over to handcuff him. As they escorted him to the police van, he looked directly at Nick and said, "Next time, you will not be this lucky." Thanks for watching. If you enjoy this video, smash the like button. Please subscribe to our channel. If you have any suggestions, please let us know in a comment. Thanks for watching again. See you in the next one.